have a question for Professor Maris Kaufman. Do you hear me?
Sorry, I was muted.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I had it on.
Yeah, you were talking about different types of impacts of the COVID-19 area, and that it has an impact on the policy, on the public behavior, and on the supply side. So what do you think about the impacts in the long term, or the memory of what has happened now? Where will we see the largest impact concerning those areas?
I think my one concern that I do have with respect to the long-term effects of the COVID-19 pandemic is that it's very clear that people have started working from home. They want to continue, in many cases, working from home, which is fine in terms of reducing the amount of commuting. But on the other hand, what it's done is caused people to shift consumption patterns away from public transportation. And for instance, TfL, which runs the buses, the tube, and the bike sharing schemes and the regional rails in London, is in very deep financial trouble. And in other parts of the UK, the transport quangos are also in deep financial trouble. And I think in terms of seeing people returning to public transport, feeling that public transport is safe, feeling that this is the correct, the right option, the green option, is a very serious problem in the UK. Because if that doesn't happen, then that's going to set us back quite dramatically. I think also in these issues around how people's homes can be made fit to be workplaces is also a very serious issue, because there's real inequality in that. I mean, it's one thing, for middle-aged professors to say we don't mind working from home, but we have members of staff who are sharing houses with 7 or 8 other people, and for them this is a serious issue. And again, the retrofit of that housing stock is a long-term challenge. But for me, I think the transport issues are the ones that really require the deepest amount of thought from planners.
Yes, thank you. So what do you think, Klaus, when it comes to the emissions and reduction of the emissions? What is the most important impact, what we have learned?
Well, I agree with what Maris was just saying in terms of structural changes. So in terms of top-down policies, I feel there's such a huge amount of money spent now, and this energy policy tracker really shows nicely, in a way, how we squander this opportunity. And but we also see some positive developments. For example, and closely related to what was just being said, is that many cities in Europe invest in bike infrastructure, right? And that does change behavior. So with biking, we see it the best that there is some structural changes that hopefully will lead to long-term changes, and this is exactly what's needed. I'm so worried about so much money now being spent, and governments having huge amounts of debts, and there just is not enough money left to invest in the infrastructure. So we can only spend $1 or euro once, and if we lock ourselves into a carbon-intensive infrastructure, it's just then a couple of decades wasted yet again, and that's exactly what I see happening in the US. So hopefully, with the elections and Trump leaving and so on, there will be a significant change. But it's such a great opportunity in a way, even though it's a huge crisis, lots of people dying and so on. But in terms of carbon mitigation, this is huge, and I feel we're just wasting it.
Yeah, that's a pity if we missing it. And as you say, it's a good opportunity. Could be a very good opportunity. So Erik, you had a vision of large changes in how we buy things, and you were talking about this 3D printing as a possibility. But what do you think about you said that it will be it will influence the transportation need, but what about the material you need for doing the printing?
Yeah. Now, what I would say is that today it is quite easy to print if you're using like polymers, those type of things. But it's coming very much now also to use for metal. We have in Finspång, a small city here, we have Siemens. They are doing with metal powder for gas turbines. So they are producing a lot of spare parts with this 3D printing. And if you can do it for a gas turbine, which is operating at temperatures like 1700 degrees centigrade, then you can probably do most things. And it would come one after the other. I know General Electric, they are doing now in concrete. They are building towers for wind power, the base fundaments, quite complex structures and so on. So I think we will get, it will be a development. And when it comes to different materials, we have to learn more about what materials to use for doing what. And this is a continuous development, but I'm quite sure it will come, it will reduce. So if you have basis, certain materials, and then when you do the printing, you have some kind of a smart system, AI system that is telling you what type of material to use for this purpose and so on. So it will be a very complex system, but it will be quite easy for you as a user, I believe.
Yeah. Okay, Professor Bo Quang Lin, you were talking about that you need to do energy efficiency and you need to go to renewables, but it's a large challenge to do it. But what do you think about the long-term impact of the COVID-19? Is something learned that will change the way the energy transitions will be done, or do you think it's too short period to give an impact?
I think the COVID-19 has some impact on China, not much in my view. Yes, we do change some of our behavior, like we are having the conference now. Okay, that could be the behavior changes. But other than that, I do not believe there will be huge impact of that.
Yes. So, Professor Kaufmann, you had some comments also to what Klaus was saying before, and some ideas on.
No, I just put it in the chat line. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with Klaus that the countercyclical mandate and the massive expansion of public spending is really meant to boost aggregate demand, and it is, to the extent that it's being spent on infrastructure, it's being spent often on carbon intensive infrastructure, and how to avoid going down that pathway so that you get into a trap where actually we're losing ground rather than gaining ground on a low carbon transition because of the countercyclical mandate of infrastructure banks and public banks in general. That's a real tension globally in terms of policy, and I think that that's something that we really need multilaterals to take the lead on trying to resolve as a group. And I'm not sure that we've heard enough on that in that space at the moment. I mean, it's because it's too easy to greenwash. It's too easy to pretend that you're actually investing in a low carbon transition when all you're doing is trying to boost aggregate demand. So that I absolutely think Klaus is spot on with that. And I will look forward to reading their paper.
Yes, I had another question for you, Klaus. When you're talking about your models and the data and for the future, so have you had the possibility to also to use some of the data from the last year? I mean, you were talking about the influences of the lockdowns, but have you been able to use data to see what happens when the lockdown is removed? For example, in China, where they have...
Oh, yeah. Let's see, my microphone is on. Yes, we did indeed. So we have, there's a couple of very cool apps that show us changes in mobility. They are on a daily basis, for example. And so the amount of data that has come online, not all of which, of course, we used. So we used the mobility one to show how people move around and how that will impact going to work and so on, which is then the labor restriction working its way out in the model in terms of expenditure patterns, which we didn't do, but there is also credit card information for it. Would have been too expensive to use, but there's some really neat websites that show, and you have to buy it, but the expenditure patterns measured or reflected via credit card expenditure. And it's so much cool data out there, like the energy policy tracker, the lockdown tracker, different policies, and so on. It's great to work with very good data available. The question is a conceptual one, how to include it in the modeling and so on. It's also, much of that stuff has come online recently. And so, you know how it goes with writing a paper. It takes a while, and then new data comes, and you can't just jump around and take always the latest. But I think we did a good job in capture some of the actual dynamics. But yeah, it's fun to see all these apps in terms of movement, especially, I would say, you know, people biking and bike counts in cities and so on. There's lots of great stuff available. It's nice.
Okay, thank you. So time is running out, so I would like to thank all 4 of you panelists for the part 2, and then I leave for Guangzhou.
Goodbye.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, professors. So let us now welcome Professor Yan Jingyue, the chairman of the ICAE 2020, for a brief conclusion. Welcome, Yan, and please.
Yeah, I was not prepared. In fact, I will just say very simple words. Thanks for the panelists for taking your time in this particular special time, and wish everyone to continue enjoying the course, the conference, and also stay safe and healthy in different places. And we are going to continue to have another 2 keynotes in the afternoon, and maybe in your time in another time, and also the 4 parallel sessions. And please join us this afternoon. And also continue, we have 8 days to go. It's the longest conference I have held, and but due to this special situation. And I would like to thank Professor Xue to invite so many outstanding keynote panelists, and also the Eva to join the chair the session. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Professor Yan, for your very nice conclusion. I learned a lot from you. Now it's time to close the panel. Finally, let me thank the chairpersons for giving me this opportunity to moderate the panel. I learned from the panelists. I think many students in this group also benefited a lot from discussion. Thank you again, and wish we can meet you next time. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.